You can cross the entire planet in a single day. 16 hours in a metal tube, a nap, a movie. You step out the other side of the world. It feels ordinary, almost boring. But the real story of how your body ended up able to live on every continent on Earth is far stranger than a plane ticket. And it starts with a small group of people who had no idea they were going anywhere at all. Roughly 60,000 years ago, every direct ancestor you have was living in Africa. Not spread across the globe, not scattered, concentrated. A modest population of one species, in one corner of one continent. And then slowly, some of them left. Why did they go? For a long time, the story was simple. Humans got smart, humans got restless, humans walked out. But a 2025 study published in the journal Nature, led by evolutionary biologist Leonardi, tells a quieter version. Around 70,000 years ago, your ancestors did something subtle. They stopped specializing. Before that, humans mostly stuck to the kind of land they already knew. Then they started moving into deserts, into dense forests, into places with brutal cold and brutal heat. They became generalists, creatures that could survive almost anywhere. That single shift, the ability to live in a place you were never built for, is the quiet engine behind everything that came next. Because once you can live anywhere, you eventually go everywhere. But you don't go in a straight line, and you don't go because you chose to. The way out of Africa was almost certainly a land bridge, through the Sinai into the Arabian Peninsula, following coastlines and rivers. No boats needed for that first step, just feet and time and a reason to keep moving. And that reason was often the weather. The paleoclimatologist Peter deMenocal describes the climate of that era like a pump and a valve. When the land turned cold and dry, the routes out of Africa slammed shut. Deserts became walls. But when the rains returned and the green corridors opened, the valve opened with them, and people slipped through. So your ancestors didn't conquer the planet. They waited for doors to open. And when one did, they walked through it without ever knowing it was a door. Here is the part most people get wrong. No one was trying to discover anything. No ancient explorer stood on a hill and decided to claim a new continent. The spread of humans across the earth happened a few miles at a time, one generation pushing slightly past the last. A valley your great-grandmother never saw becomes the place your grandchildren are born. Multiply that by 1,000 generations, and a species that started in one African valley ends up on the shores of the Pacific. Not as a journey, as a drift. But drift can't explain everything, because at some point your ancestors hit water they could not walk around. Around 50,000 years ago, humans reached Australia. And to get to Australia, even when the seas were lower than they are today, you had to cross open ocean. Stretches too wide to see across, water with land somewhere beyond the horizon that you could not possibly know was there. Think about what that means. Someone built a craft. Someone loaded it with people and food. Someone pushed off from a shore toward nothing, on purpose, and survived. That wasn't drift. That was a decision. 50,000 years ago, long before farming, long before writing, your ancestors were planning, cooperating, and gambling their lives on the idea that something was out there. Does that sound like a primitive mind to you? The same story repeated on the far side of the world, in cold instead of heat. During the last ice age, so much water was locked up in ice that the sea level dropped, and a strip of land rose between Siberia and Alaska, a bridge called Beringian. But your ancestors didn't sprint across it. Genetic evidence suggests they stopped. They lived on that frozen land for thousands of years, in what scientists call the Beringian standstill. Long enough to become genetically distinct, a people of their own, before anyone moved south. And when they finally did move, they may not have walked at all. The archaeologist Jon Erlandson proposed what's called the kelp highway. Instead of trudging through an ice-choked interior, the first Americans likely hugged the Pacific coast, following dense forests of seaweed that fed fish and birds in them. A road made of kelp running all the way down to South America. By the time it was over, your species had touched nearly every habitable corner of the planet, on foot, by boat, by coastline, without a map, without a compass, without a single soul alive who knew the shape of the world they were filling, and every one of them carried something forward. As humans moved, they met other kinds of humans, Neanderthals, Denisovans, and they mixed with them. If your roots lie outside Africa, a small fraction of your DNA still comes from those ancient encounters. You are, quite literally, made of the journey. So here is the strange truth. You are not descended from the people who stayed. In every generation, most people remained where they were, comfortable, settled, safe. The world was filled by the restless ones, the handful in each group who looked at the horizon and felt the pull to see what was past it. And that pull is still in you. It's the reason an empty road feels like an invitation. The reason a window seat on a plane makes your chest go quiet. The reason you can stand in a place you have never been and feel somehow like you were always going to end up there. You can cross the entire planet in a single day now, but the part of you that wants to, that part took 60,000 years and the whole surface of the earth to make.